Welcome back. The next series here, we're going to play around with the foliage mode, which is F3. We're just below landscape mode. So with foliage mode, what we're going to do is we're going to use a paintbrush style. So you're going to go in here with the paint tool in foliage mode, and we're going to play with the brush size and basically painting on objects like rocks, plants, boulders, uh, grass, bushes, trees, things like that. And you can control the density here. So you could drop any mesh in here into the drop foliage here. It's not just foliage. It's kind of a silly name for it anymore now that it's gone beyond. But you can see here with the filters, we're going to kind of look at this conceptually, how it was originally designed, and then we're going to add some other things. You can select areas, lasso, remove, erase. So these should be really straightforward once you get started. The brush size here can still be manipulated. Let's see if I select my landscape and then I switch to foliage mode. Until there's something in here, there isn't really too much. But you'll see the canyon here, the stretching. We want to hide any extreme vertical pieces like this with we want to shell or put like a thin mesh across there. So to that end, we're going to take a look at some asset lists. So I have a mushroom valley. It's like a giant fungus level here. So we have a whole series of different asset lists, but I want you to always just start off your process. Should be really straightforward. Um, Once you've looked at a few of these, so you have the skyline, the edge out here, which you're going to see maybe for a background or map painting. You have the skybox itself. So you have the dome. You have some hills or mountains or buildings on the large scale backdrop planes. So those are your fake backdrops. Usually, this is what you would have in there. There's some notes on this particular one. Then on the ground, primary for this one, have embankments on the side. So we would need some embankments here if we wanted it to be like an old river valley or something like that that was eroded. Some mossy overhangs. We have some alphas on theirs. And then since it's a giant mushroom valley, we have long ones, medium, short, rock mushrooms, 3 or 4 of each kind. And then for the Mushroom Society, the myconids that we're building for this, we'd have different architectural piece. And then rubble. So I have earth rubble, plant rubble, vines, bushes, moss beds. For the creatures, I had the myconids themselves, the mushroom queen, maybe a rock troll, and then for the architecture, different lamps and things like that. So this is a typical asset list. And it's really important to always start off knowing, okay, I need to do these things, just bang them out and get them done. So we have Sculptress here. We're going to use Sculptress, and then we also have the other app over here called Sculpt GL. So these are the 2 free sculpting apps. So rapid prototyping wise, we're going to jump into these 2 apps, and then we'll hop over into Maya. Inside Maya, I have an organic kit demo that we're going to do as part of this. So this is your little human-sized cylinder, which is 160 centimeters tall. So let's jump straight into the sculpting apps, and let's make this environment from scratch. Okay, so remember you have the Maya Modeling Sculptor Sculpt GL notes. Inside there you have the Sculptress link. Very straightforward. Your home row keys for your left hand's ER, DF, CV, all on top of each other in order there. So you have crease, rotate, draw, flatten, inflate, and pinch. Hold down control does the mask. And if you hover over any of these buttons in here, you're going to get the name with the shortcut key. So let's just remember that. So to that end, let's go ahead and get started. So I will open a new sphere, facing the camera, new scene. Don't want to add the object. Change will be lost, no problem. And we're going to do some organic stuff here. So I'm just going to do a couple rocks and boulders and cliff faces. So for that, we do have, there is some ability to use the scale tool as well for smaller areas. But you can also scale globally. So if you hit the scale tool T, if you hit it a second time, you'll see it goes from an area to global size on there. And then if you hit S on the keyboard, you can then scale just in one particular direction. So scale left to right, scale this way out, and scale up, down. There we go. Sideways, and then see if this one's going to work. I thought it used to work to all 3. Okay. So yeah, just be aware you have those different pieces available on all these. I'm going to turn off symmetry as well. We don't need symmetry mode for rocks and trees. That looks really weird if you do have symmetry mode turned on. And we're just going to hop through these. So flatten is F. So I'm going to do a large flatten brush. Bracket keys go up and down, and I'm going to turn off W, turn off wire mesh for just a moment, and also hold down Shift. So I'm just going to make a couple kind of sharp-ish rocks. Some flatten is your friend here, so use flatten a lot to and see if it's adding. It's not adding. I have the strength turned down quite a bit on Q here, so that way if I flatten it, if I turn it way up and add, it's just going to add vertices, so undo that. So keep on Q, keep the strength of the detail down low because we're blocking and we're white boxing. We're not doing anything else. G is your grab tool. I'll go ahead and full screen this while I'm working, so you can kind of move things around here, left to right. So you get a couple basic pieces started for boulders that I am happy with, and then I'll. So it'll look a little blot. Doing rocks is harder than you think. A lot of times they end up looking like little piles of poo. So you want to avoid the poo boulders when you're first starting, and just kind of play around, and you'll get the hang of it. I try and make all sides of the rock interesting, so that's using G. Go back to flatten, and just going to chisel some edges here. And it's all about clefts and cuts in the stone, eroding, what kind of debris, what other pieces are around it. I could go back to E to crease, and then down to the bottom, or the middle row is D to draw. So as I draw in some detail here, just have clay turned on. That'll add a little bit of detail. Let's see if I turn this up a tiny bit, if that's going to give us a little bit more, yeah, just a little bit more wires in there. Shift again, but avoid any weird shapes that aren't as faceted. You have very round boulders that eroded a lot and tumbled and spun around. That can be different. So there you go. I'm just kind of just getting started. I would have reference up on this as well. So inside the world building and level design process document, step by step, you have the list of from World of Level Design, 121 level design game environment ideas: hangars, bars, bowling alleys, deserts, laboratory, prison, plaza, parks, whatever. So if you need to brainstorm new ideas, that's helpful. And then down here you have the organic modular master list. So for the organic model kits, we're looking at different soil. The trees can have the trunk, primary branch, secondary, tertiary branch. You can have leaves, roots. These are just real basic, getting you started. And there's going to be rocks, soil and rock. You have the macro structure, which kind of we're talking about the large cliffs, and then large, boulder, medium, small, and rock. And then if you go down, you can see some examples of actual foliage designs that have been brought out, as well as the rocks going from smaller pieces into larger formations. And here's a large piece that you might use as a background, as well as shrinking it down and recombining it into a tileable piece. And then here's a tree model kit. Again, trunk, primary branch, secondary branch, tertiary, leaves, roots, things like that. And here's another example of like a more surreal type of kind of old gnarled, almost like something you would see in a coral reef, but above ground. And so there's quite a few examples of these. You can just kind of make a little list of what makes sense to you for rocks and trees. So let's do the cliff one first. So let's get this and let's scale it way up. So scale T, hit it one more time, and see if we can't scale it using just one direction. There we go. So really tall that way, and then let's see if we can't go really wide this way. Yeah, tall and wide. There we go. It's really just going in two directions. That works okay, I think. Don't really like the scale tool in here too much, but it's free software, so what the heck. So grab it again, and you see it's adding polygons to it. So this would be like a good cliff face, I think. This will work pretty well for the rocky. So I'm going to do like a rocky embankment that kind of curves over on the top a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to go back to D, my draw brush. I'm just going to draw in some thickness up here at the top of it. So this is going to have a more directionality. So a lot of times when I do rocks, like I mentioned a minute ago, I usually suggest we also have inflate below that C. So you can see there it's adding more details. It's inflating, and then back to D. Bring those up. But yeah, it's good to have a generic up there, especially for rocks and boulders and things like that. But for a cliff, which with an embankment, it kind of has a top and it has a bottom, but it doesn't necessarily have a front or a back side. You can make it read well from both sides of it. So I'm not going to curl it too hard as just a single piece, but I'm going to curl on both sides so you can flip it back and forth. So go back to draw and fill in that side, and then shift to smooth out. Whoops, the other shift key to smooth that out. If you use control, if you hold down C, you'll see you mask out a piece. Just control drag on empty space to get rid of that. And I go to the top of this now. I can go back to F to the top of the embankment and like kind of flatten that out a bit. So wherever I press and start with and pull out, that's going to give that a relatively more flat top area. There it goes. Not bad. Pull it to the side. And I want to be quick with this, so I'm not going to overkill it at all. That's as much for me to remind myself as it is to remind anyone following along not to get wrapped up in detail. So there we go. I'm going to keep pulling this out, and you'll see Sculptress is just so beautiful in how it pulls the tessellation and the triangles out as you go. So there we go. So just for this one piece, I want to do one embankment piece and see how much I can recombine and recurve that, so to speak, around for the top portion of that. There we go. It's a little, it's not as flat as I would want it to be, so I can go back across this, but it can only do so much with flatten. And then you have to go back into, there you go, if you pull that up, if you go back to the grab tool. And again, maybe I want to rotate it a little bit. I can always just rotate it. See if I can get this to rotate. Yeah, I have to do it a second time. Rotate the whole thing. There it goes. So I can rotate and get that flatter on top. There we go. That's a little bit faster sometimes than it is to try and get a perfect flatten tool. Of course, if you're using ZBrush or some other sculpting applications, you could do a much better job. So that looks okay for now. Go back into my draw brush, use the bracket keys to go up and down, and just do some supports kind of coming up underneath that ledge so it doesn't look like it's totally going to fall over. Do both sides just a little bit. That and have some fun, kind of get side to side with it. Go back to my grab brush, hit it a second time. If you hit grab, it's local. If I hit it, you see the button up there. If I hit it a second time, it goes global, which moves the whole thing, right? But if I hit a second time, I can just grab a corner with a nice big, use the bracket keys to make it larger and pull that out. So I'm trying to get this a little bit more even, so modular, so it's going to like fit in the space a little bit better. If it starts crumpling in on itself, immediately switch to shift, smooth that back out again like that. And then we can do the reduction brush here in a moment. I'll show you how that works. So back to D, draw, let's get those supports coming under. So how on earth this thing would even be overhang at all, because you want to like sell that in the basic geometry. So that's just about done. Put down the bottom here, and I can hold down Alt to push back in, and let go of Alt, hold down Shift to smooth out a little bit. So you're pulling some out with the basic draw brush, and then hold down Alt to push back in next to it. So if you want to get more surface undulation, surface change, wherever you pull out a stroke, push and next to it, back to it, and that kind of gives it a double whammy. It's pulling out and pushing in against that edge. The next one would be the crease tool, which is E. So I'll do a little bit bigger on this. This could add a lot of subdivision. So if I go in here and it starts adding too many triangles, then I'll back that detail strength down just a bit. But it looks like it's okay for now. And again, not to do too much detail, but crease to push in some fissures and rivulets. Hold down Alt to the opposite and pull up a sharp edge next to where you push down. That gives you a lot of clefts and detailed feature that keeps the fastest, keeps from getting too lumpy. So you want to avoid the lumpy, marshmallowy effect. So I'm pushing down without holding down, and as I hold down Alt, it's going to bring it back up again. So if, sometimes I'll mean to go in and actually pull up a spot, and sometimes it's a happy accident, sometimes it's not. So pull them back out again, the Alt key, and remember it is pressure sensitive, so you can kind of press a little lighter, press a little harder. Here we go, it's looking okay. Come to the other side and pull, take a nice big one. And then next to it, go back in, hold down Alt again, pull up another one up to the top here. There it goes, there it goes. And then pull back down, pull down Alt, pull back up again. Get that edge, maybe this edge out here too. There we go. And then smaller size brush, fissure. And yeah, the size of the brush will add more detail too. So you have to be careful how detailed you go. Now, if it's not gonna, the detail is really pointless at this stage in the game. So do really control how much you want. Major silhouette changing shapes, you don't want to get in there like I was just starting to do. Do not go in there yet and start trying to add a bunch of detail that doesn't help get the game blocked in. You want to block the your environment and game, whatever, animation, scene. You want pieces big enough to get a whole level built with and then move on. So that's looking okay for now. Yeah, I think that'll be all right. So let's go reduce this. My total triangle count right now is 31,000. You can see right down here on the bottom. So I'm going to go to the reduce brush right here, make a nice big reduce brush, and just gently slide over, and you can see the triangle count. I just dropped to 27,000. So just a few strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm down to 24,000. So I just got rid of 3 more. So just go to wherever there's a lot of triangles, just stroke a few times on there. And if you want, turn off W so you can see the silhouette. So you can really see it's not changing hardly at all, the detail. It's just, get rid of any triangles that don't help hold up the silhouette. So I'm going to get this really low poly like that. And this is just getting started. The top here is pretty smooth. I can get rid of a lot of those. You want to keep it along the edges and the corners maybe. We're just going to catch the light. There we go. I'm all the way down to 9,000 now. That's good. And then, so none of the parts of the ledger maybe under here have like an insanely large number of triangles. There we go. Looks pretty good. Okay. Yep. 7,000 triangles. That's excellent. I call that done. I could go back to flatten and maybe chisel out and maybe facet a couple of those edges a little bit better. So if it's not enough, I thought I was on. Oh, well, I hit the E key on accident. So yeah, if there's not enough surface detail there to flatten it out, sometimes you can inflate it a little bit if you need to. So I could go over here to C to inflate. I could pump this back out. You'll see before I do that, let's turn the detail back down again. I don't want to add much more detail at this point. I just want to change the silhouette a bit more. There we go. So bring that back out on the bottom. Go back to F and see if I can just flatten this side of it out a little bit better. There we go. It's working okay. Yeah. A little flat. Not bad. W. Okay, done. There's my little cliff piece. All right, so what do we do with this? It's 8,000 triangles. W, let's go to reduce brush again. And the stuff I just added in there, I just want to make sure it's not too many triangles. So I'm going to do this really fast on the other ones, I hope. And this one maybe took a little longer as I'm describing what I'm doing and going back and making subtle changes. Okay, so that's one piece. So we're going to save this out. So go File, Save. It's going to be a sculpture file. I have a little folder here, so I'm going to do this cliff underscore 01. Oops, got my caps lock on, huh? I might have been doing something funny. Cliff underscore 01. Save, and then we'll do an obj export. Cliff underscore 01 dot obj. I have just my temporary folder, my C drive. That should be all right. And then we can, let's do a boulder. So maybe for that, we're going to do a new sphere. So facing a camera, new scene. Don't resize anything. There we go. And let's get like one large boulder done. So that's one cliff. Here's one boulder. So F on the keyboard is still on. Symmetry is on by default. So it's a one-way thing. You can only do it once. Just be ready once you do it. There's a lock-on plane with the flat as well. So if I hold down, if I hit F again, it's going to lock and make that whatever my initial hit, kind of like the flatten brush in Unreal. It's going to make whatever I start from. It's going to bring all the other triangle points to that surface. Is really, really helpful. So yeah, do a nice big, I'll do a bigger brush, there we go, and get it flattened, get it faceted on all sides, and you can decide on your reference what type of rocks. Do study your reference like crazy, like really know, have a lot of reference and variety in different types. There's so many different types of rocks and layers of sediment and soil that you could play around with. So have something to look at while you're doing this. I've done so many at this point, I kind of can just wing it most of the way. So we'll go back to draw, a nice big one. We'll kind of just add in maybe top half to this boulder. If I hold down shift and snap, there's front. But as I'm rotating, I hold down shift, there's right. As I rotate down, hold down shift, there's top. So just to kind of give yourself an orientation, know where stuff is on there. That's looking okay as a starting point. So I'm going to go to my crease tool, and we'll see what the detail's at. Let's see, it's right about there. And maybe make the brush smaller, and that'll allow us to maybe crease in some details. Yeah, I was just saying, not to do too much detail, so we'll see if I can hold up to my own advice here. It's harder than you think sometimes. There we go, opposite crease there, holding Alt button, and then maybe up along the top here. So just get some creases to come out, maybe push back in, maybe at the top would be a little more rounded than along the bottom or to the sides would be, hold their shape sometimes, we'll see. And then do a nice small one. You can kind of break that up a bit as you go. And just trying to find, where would this thing, naturally be cracking or falling apart? What type of, assembly of stone is it made out of? What type of rock? Is it, volcanic? Is it more made from erosion? There we go, holding down shift a little bit as I go, and then back to F, flatten some of that stuff out a little bit. Hit F a second time to go out of the lock plane. And then there's an angle fall off as S. So let's see, I'm going to go to the top here, do a big pass on the side, turn down off the wireframe W. So I'm just kind of pressing along to see how that chisels out in facets. Maybe one flattened edge up against another flattened edge usually makes a nice chisel sharp point next to it. But if you have softened edge on S, it'll kind of round around that corner. So if I do that again, if I chisel here or flatten it there and see how the strength's doing it. Strength is right here. There we go. There we go. So that's, and then have a F a second time, it's going to bring everything to that flattened area, no matter which direction I go. And then here, same thing. She's bringing everything to that chisel. Then here, same thing. Right. So bringing two flattened edges, two surfaces up against each other is usually going to get you a nice chiseled corner like that. And you can turn off the lock plane and turn off soft and see if we can now have it like kind of go over the edge, so to speak, as you come over this edge. There you go. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, so definitely not a spectacular rock. Nothing I'm particularly excited about on this one. But for the essence of time, I just want to get something in there that's at least the right size and get it in there and have fun with it and see if I can't get to building the level in. So we want to scale these out a little bit and get them retopoed and get them into the game engine like ASAP. So that should be good enough for us. Okay, so there's my boulder number one. So I'm going to go down here to the triangles. That's at 19,000. Turn on your wireframe. We can do the reduce on the whole thing. As well, hit that one time, reduce selected. So it just went down to 15,000, down to 11,000. That was a lot. Then switch Y to the reduction brush and find the most detailed areas and just kind of brush stroke those details right out. So I'm at 9,000. So you see I don't have a method. We have Lumen Nanite available. So Nanite does, up to billion polygons, or getting into the billions. It does the real-time, what this does basically is real-time tessellation reduction on the mesh density. And there's this kind of way too detailed there. So a few strokes there. So all that detail started painting in there. It's gone. So don't do it. Don't bother. It's not worth it. It's a few strokes just to test and maybe think about future detail is okay. Otherwise, you're just kind of wasting your time. But there we go. So all the way down to 6. Then reduce the whole thing again. Good. Down to 5. One more time. 4,000. That should be fine. Okay. Do file save. We're going to save this as boulder _01 is my sculptress file, and then we'll do export, Control E, and we do boulder, but take off the SC. It's not a sculptress file. We just want that as a plain old OBJ file. So there's a cliff face. There is a boulder. We can then maybe do some smaller rocks. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale this down all the way. So go T twice. Just make a flattened like rock out of it like that. And kind of widen it that way. There we go. So a little flatter rock. And then at the top here, I see maybe something might be broken there. So I'm going to go back to my regular D brush, hold down shift and just smooth that out. Make sure that I don't have anything collapsing in on itself as I go. There we go. That's actually pretty good. All right, let's go back to scale, which is T, and see if we can scale that out a little more this way or go out more from that direction. There we go. It looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. Maybe out more this way. So there's like a little flat, protruding rocky piece rather than a boulder. And if I hit W, yeah, it holds up pretty good. Not too bad. So just really quickly on that. So let's reduce at one time. It's still at 4,000 triangles at one time. And it kind of evenly reduces the whole thing. One more. There we go. I'm down to 34, and one more. There we go. I'm down to 2,800 or 2,800 triangles. So that looks fine. I'm not going to put any more time into it. So we're going to go save as, and this one will be boulder underscore 2. SC, and then do one more. One more export on the OBJ, and we'll call this one boulder 2 as well. Make sure I did that right. Boulder 01, F01, save. Okay, I think we're all right. That should work just fine. All right, let's do a couple of mushrooms. That should be a lot of fun. So let's hop over to Maya for a moment. So I'm going to go over to Maya and we'll full screen that and do file import. So after we make the basic shapes, we're going to go into this temporary. We're going to grab the boulder. Remember to grab the OBJ files. We're going to grab boulder. Whoops, let's see what's it doing. Oh yeah. Okay, so grab boulder 2 first. That was the last one I did. There you see it's really tiny. Don't worry about the scale just yet, but we do want to scale it up and maybe move that over to the side. And then we'll do file import again. We'll get import and we'll get boulder 1 and import that one. Same thing, grab that, scale it way up, move it off to the side. So there's our 2 boulders. File import one more and we get the cliff. So there's cliff OBJ. Grab the cliff and scale it up. And you'll see that is the top, at least on there. We can see left to right, forward and backward. So let's make it forward facing. So I'm going to go about there with it. And then whenever I'm doing a rock, don't want the base to be perfectly snapped to the bottom of the ground necessarily. I want to maybe push it down through the ground just a little bit. And then D and X, I want to make sure the pivot is down here at the middle of the world. Go and just double check that is about right. Looks like I'm off by 1 grid snap. Oops, D and X. There we go. And then you can also check in the top viewport and turn on X-ray, and that is aligned correctly. Okay, so that's pretty good. You can see down here, it's off a bit, so I want to bring that, go into vertex mode, grab all the vertices and just slide them. Whoa, turn off symmetry tool, make sure nothing symmetrical about these things. At least there shouldn't be, that's for sure. There we go, bring that over, and that's, if I see it from the side view, I want the body of the cliff to be through that main center vertical key line, and then from the front view, same thing, I want it about centered. That should be right. And so if I go back again, that was really strange. Object mode. There we go. That should be okay. So what I can do from here is use the new remesh tool. See, it's all triangulated, kind of garbagey. So what I'm going to do is for each of these models, is I'm going to go to mesh, and we're going to go to retopologize, pull up the settings box, and whatever our vertex count was, that's at 7,000. We can get rid of pre-processed mesh. We can keep the original if we want. And we can tell it what we want the total count to be. Let's go 3,500. So just a tiny bit less. Keep it, these settings, I put up just a tiny bit, hit apply. It's been pretty fast. Like that was quick. That was really fast. So now you can see for here, if I have that, see there's my new topology. Pretty clean. I could take that in detail. Here's my old triangulated one. So let's just trash that right now. And let's make sure we get the rest of these. So get group mesh 1, piece cylinder, where'd the rest of our pieces go? Mesh 1. Huh, just called a mesh. I'll be darned. Okay, so this one is cliff. Zero 1. Okay, hit enter. and just drag it out of that group. We don't need it in any kind of a group. And get rid of that one, delete. Once it's done, freeze, delete history. If we want to, we could do a quick UV unwrap on these as well, but I'm not going to do that just quite yet. Hold down X, bring it over, make sure you can see it's indeed zeroed out in the world. Looks like it is, okay, and hit apply. And we'll get rid of the old one, which was 4,000 triangles, and the new one is now 7,000. Oh, it's more. Well, that's not good. Let's get rid of that. Mesh, 4,000. Base triangle count 3,500. So let's go way down, like say 1,500. Hit apply. There we go. And that one is 3,500. Even though I said my target base count was 15. I guess this 15 is a quad and divided by 2 for each triangle. So that one's 4. That one's 35. So that looks okay. So I'll just delete that one. I think there might have been some symmetry. Did it make it symmetrical? I don't remember doing that. There's no symmetry whatsoever. Why is it symmetrical? Do I have a symmetry turn? Oh, whoops. Did not see that, folks. So undo. No, we do not want this to be one. Asymmetrical for sure. Very particularly. Oh man. We want it to not be symmetrical. We want to be able to have spit it around and have different sizes so that you're not using the exact same repetitive faces for your model. So to undo symmetry as well. And let's try that again. So we don't want the original. Let's just assume we can do this right the first time. There we go. That looks good. Yeah, excellent. Go to X-ray mode and D and X, grab the circle, go down to the 0 of the world. Freeze, delete history, and make sure we name this again. So we'll go cliff or cliffs. 01. And we'll take it out of that group so it has its own group here. Remember our P cylinder center, that is our human HUM underscore REF, human ref. Always have your human reference there. It's 160 centimeters tall. There's one cliff. All right, let's. That's already been done, so we can grab this one. We can do export selection. Call this cliffs 01. And if you need to, since if we may already have that in there. No, it looks like we didn't. See C drive temp. So yeah, I had cliff 01. I call this one cliffs. So if that is the case, cliff, I do A01, something to differentiate it so it doesn't get mixed up down the pipeline. I probably should have a better pipeline naming convention than that, but we'll come back to that. So okay, here's our boulder. The boulder's down in the ground, right on. And the pivot is right there. So DX, grab the circle, pop it to the 0, go to vertex mode, grab all the vertices. Let's make it not perfectly centered. Let's put it like it has a little bit of an upside like that, but otherwise it's down in the middle. Back to object mode again. That's looking okay. And so make sure symmetry is off, make sure our target count is low. There we go, and hit apply. No saving on the original, so there we go. That's not bad at all. I like it. Go boulder. Underscore A, underscore 01. Enter, freeze, delete, and middle mouse drag up and dead. Delete, delete. Last one. Mesh. This one out of the way. Oh yeah, this one here. File, export selection. Boulder A01. Export selection. Oh, maybe we do want UV maps on these guys, so I'll come back to that just real quick, just so you guys know how fast it is to UV map these days. And that way you can put a tileable texture on there right quick and not just worry about a solid color. This one definitely is floating quite a bit, so I'll grab all these vertices and let's make sure we got some portion of it down in case we set it on the ground. It's always going to have a good chunk of it somewhat centered and like some more above than what's below on average. and then more maybe cocked over to one side than the other, so it's not perfectly symmetrical. It's just a general rule of thumb, definitely not an absolute. I think that's okay if I wanted these all going like forward facing the camera when I place it. Maybe that's another observable way we'd want this thing to behave when we put it in there. So that looks good though. Let's go out of X-ray mode, go back to object mode. That should be still set at 000 world coordinates. And let's go ahead and hit retopologize. I don't know about future. Preserving the hard edges maybe um, it didn't retopologize as well as I'd want, and there's edges by angle. So I'll come back to these details. But right now we're just going super quick, right? This is for to block in a prototype, so we don't really want to worry about this much more than we already have. So this one is boulder underscore B underscore 01. So I know that's two distinct boulders with a freeze and a delete and a middle mouse drag. Good to go. These three models are all ready to go. I can grab all three of them. We can group them. Call this organics rocks. Okay, and grab all three of these guys. Go to the translate. Make sure they're zero. Whoops. 0, 0, 0. Hit enter. So all three of them should be at the world center. So we're going to grab all three of them, and we're going to do a quick UV unwrap. So just go to the UV unwrap window, UV unwrap editors right here, and we'll grab that and just going to create and give them all a simple flat planar projection for a UV map. Now, we could get into the details of, but the way it's going to project how the pixels go onto the model, let's put it sideways like this for right now. And you just want to make sure that it's, oh, wow, filling the 0 to 1 space nicely. And once that's done, hit enter. And then what you can do is you can pick where you want it to cut at. So usually I'll pick an edge, and let's pick this object first, like that. And we'll just pick an edge here, go to edge, double click at a 5-star, double click it, see if it goes all the way around underneath. Usually it will not. Turn off the grid for just a moment. And then down here, grab the rest of these. And then down to this one, double click and see if it goes under and around all the way up almost. Right there, that's good. And then we want it to meet back up on the top somewhere. So I'm going to come across the top here. I'm basically just cutting where we want this thing to be hinged from. So actually right there is good. So it's going to cut along here. This is going to be cut open. And it's going to allow this piece here to come up and unwrap. So think of how you flatten a cardboard box, how you would flatten a pattern for something like a t-shirt or jacket or something like that. It's no real difference. So hit this one, double click. Goes there, double click. Whoa, one next to it, double click. There we go. So super fast is what we want. For one placeholder model UV unwrap, that should be good. Once you have the edges you want it where it to cut, it's two simple steps. It's cut and so Shift X and Shift S, and then automatic modify unfold, which is Control U. So we cut the edges. Make sure this window's active. I usually do Alt middle mouse window, Shift X, cut. Right click, go to faces, grab all the faces, and Control U. Boom, done. So awesome. We missed an edge there, no problem. Go to the edge, Shift X, go to faces, double click, it'll get all the contiguous faces at least. So there's one side of it. There we go. Looks like it did something weird right there. I'm not sure what. Double click that. And oh yeah, it looks like it left off this little strip here. That's interesting. I don't know why it did that. Okay, so if we want those edges closed, we just grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then go into this middle mouse, Alt, and then Shift S to sew, and then go back to faces and Control U and unwrap again, and that's fine. Turn on checkerboard for a moment, make sure the checkers are roughly even. So right now we have, what's going on here? We have default material, turn that off, and that gives us back to checker. So just make sure the checkers are all approximately the same size, which they are. That's good. If we wanted the top to be even more different, we could do another cut and make sure this top cap is different, but this is fine for now. So let's grab this whole mess here and we will arrange and lay out. So I'll just do orient the shells or gather the shells. Uh-oh, it's not going to crash, is it? No, okay, that's good. Scaling down and turn on so we can see. Funny, it's not showing any of the letters. There's 0 to 1, so 0 to 1 to this line and 0 to 1 up there. These have to be inside that. So if I click this one, it's sideways, looks like. So if you want the cliff texture map to run a certain way, we want to make sure it's facing the right direction. Same thing for this one, the top and the edge. So we'll go ahead and just cut that edge now. So I'll just grab this edge, double click, turn off this for a moment, go next to it. Not as quick and as dirty as I would have liked, but it's all right. Whoops, take those off. How far up did that go? Went all the way around, didn't it? Dang. Yeah, the edge loops are running wild on this auto round wrap tool. That's okay. Bacon strips. There we go. This should be good. So go in there, Shift X, cut it again. Base, double click, Control U, unwrap again. See it's slightly different. Turn on the show texture. So grab this, go to rotate, rotate it around so that the letters are facing the right direction. And you need to double check it. There you go. UVs, they are indeed facing the right direction. This is good. And then for the top one here, you want to make sure it is also facing the right direction. It is. Cool. We could do some scaling on this, but I don't want to get into that too much. So I'll just turn that off. So the three of these need to fit between 0 and 1 up in here. So we're pretty darn close. So 0 to 1. And this one also 0 to 1. This one's also 0 to 1. And you can texture pack these as well. They can all share a texture map, but these are all going to share a tiling texture space, so it's really not that important for this particular type of UV set that we're making. If I can get this even closer. You don't want them touching. You don't want them really even close to touching for that matter. So let's just scale them all down comfortably and we'll call this done. So bring that down. And it's all within the border. Good to go. Go out of the individual mode, grab the boulder. For this one, we can grab both of them on the same UV set if you want to see them. Let's just grab just the boulder for right now. It already has a projection map on there. So let's isolate that one for a moment and say, okay, I want to grab this one right here. Double click, see what kind of edge loop we can get on this guy. This might be a little wonky at first, but that's okay. We want to have like a good lid, like a lid to a trash can or soda can type of UV map on there. I think that'll work okay. And then we'll do this one here. See how that one goes. Oh, it went all the way around. Look at that. Well, that's useful. So we'll keep that. And then go over here, Shift X, cut it. Right click go to faces, double click Control U, and see how that works. Turn on checker. And just see if the checkers are generally not stretching. See, it stretches a little badly, like down in here. Or maybe it needs a little bit more freedom to move, to cut that some more. So maybe we grab some more edges, use Q so I don't accidentally do anything funky in there. Go in there, Shift X, cut it. Right click, go to faces, double click Control U, unwrap it again. You see that released a lot of that torque or that tension for the 3D to go, the 2D pixels to be wrapped around a 3D object. And the rest of it looks pretty fine. So we're going to have, it's a boulder, so we don't really have an up or down on there as much as the other, but we can see how big it is in relation to the cliff. So this is perfect. So we can take this piece here, and we can just scale it down. And so they're going to share a texture. It's also called an atlas map. We have a lot of objects sharing a single texture map. It reduces draw calls because it only has to load and reference that texture one time. We have one more though that's pretty good size, so that is this other piece right over here, and it's a lot flatter. It's also just for the size, just to pack these into a single one. Let me scale this down a little bit like that, and then freeze, delete, and then isolate it. And let me zoom in there. So let's see if we can get a good edge loop on this one as well. So we'll go right in here and then double click and see if it goes all the way around. It did not. It stopped. Right around, goes all the way around. Oh, geez. Almost. Maybe I should use that one instead. Yeah, let's do that. Double click that one. And then we just basically want to open up like a clamshell. And then it stops right here. Perfect. So we take that one away and add that one. And actually, no, let's hinge it there. So let's take away that. So it just runs all the way around like that and then stops back here for the hinge of the clamshell. Okay, so inside the UV editor, activate it, Alt middle mouse, Shift X, cut it, right? You see the white line is left behind. That's where the UVs are cut open. So this 3D space is just all the pixels piled on top of each other. Let's unwrap that. Let's unfold it. So go to Faces, double click, Control U, unfold. Beautiful. There's our open clamshell. And again, that is modify, unfold, Control U. So all this stuff you don't really need it all that much. So this should be our atlas map for our 3 organic pieces. So if I go and grab the object mode, if I grab all of them, I can now grab by size and scale. Probably grab, looks like we might have missed one. I don't know where this one goes, this little box goes to. But this one looks okay, so I can scale that down and we can shove it in right over there. And then we can check and see if the pixel sizes are about the same, pixel resolution, by checking the boxes. This one here goes to, oh, that's my human reference. I accidentally included that in my grab. So I should probably put that on a layer and freeze it, right? So do that right now, layer, new layer by selection, reference, double click, and human or hum, unref, hit save, and we can even, it exists, unref, okay, underscore lay. So you can't name layers same name as an object for node for whatever reasons under the hood, so that way I can't click on it anymore. So Alt 5 on the keyboard gives us the wireframe. So there's very quickly a model kit set with a cliff face and a boulder and a smaller flat kind of wedgie type sized boulder to go into your block-in space. So make sure these are all 3 are zeroed out. So 0, so I can just click 0, 0, 0, just double checking. There's scripts you can write for all this stuff. It's good. There is some tweaks still in there, so freeze again, delete history again. Double check again that indeed this piece does sit on the ground well from where the center point is. Looks good. Yes, it does. All right, they're ready to rock and roll. So they're in the group here, so I can just grab these 3. You could export them as individually. I think we did the cliff already. Let's double check file. Export selection, put an A in there. So this was cliff A01 OBJ. Looks good. Yep, because it has UVs now, right? So you have to re-export it. Here's the boulder A01 file, export selected. And we'll go boulder A01, save over the top of it. Yes, thank you very much. And the last one, grab these and move them out of the way for just a minute. Or you could just, whoops, or we just grab it here and isolate it and then do file export selection. Oops. And this one is boulder B01. So let's go boulder, which I don't think we did, B_01. There we go, boulder B01, export selection. And those are OBJs, those are ready to rock and roll. out of isolation mode. Let's save our organic kit. That is now saved, and we're going to grab these three pieces and as well as the organic node here, do a new layer, name the layer. This is going to be rocks, cliffs. And if you need to, put underscore layer for layer. Okay, we don't need to color code stuff just quite yet, but I'll do a brown on that one. So if we're off of that one, that's brown. If I click on any one of them, if I arrow key up, it's going to go to the group. So now I can move this group over here without moving the actual translations or rotations of the object. I'm doing that on the node, the group node, instead of in the individual node. So that's what the nodes are used for. So I'm going to save that, Control S, save that. This should be on its own layer. If I'm not using it, put it on reference or template. Reference will be okay. And I always move it to the side, since on the side view we look this way, so nothing's in the camera view in front of it when we look at it from the side view. Alt 5, always on all your viewports so you can see your darn edge loops. Everyone keeps forgetting to turn edge loops on. I can't see. We can't see your model. You can't see your edge loops very well when you're designing stuff. Okay, that is it. We should be ready to rock and roll. Let's see, is that doing it's doing a clip playing on me, isn't it? Okay, interesting. Okay, those are already. I'm going to hit save, and we'll come back to this in just a moment. Okay, back in Unreal Editor, I made a folder called Geometry inside the content folder. I had some stuff I put in there already, so I'm going to grab my, not the material file, so just Boulder A, so I can even go into these material files here and just delete them. So here's Cliff AO1, so we definitely want the Cliff, and all the defaults should be okay. If you haven't touched it before, just hit import. Then we'll do Boulder A01, import, and Boulder B01, and import. Okay, so now these can be added to our foliage brush. So for the cliff itself, you might want to carefully place it in there. Let's go ahead and save all. Just hit save selected. So for the first one, we'll grab the cliff. It looks like it laid it on its side. I hope it didn't do that. It shouldn't be. No, it's not. Okay. But it's fairly good sized model. So we'll go Shift 1. I think I was in the wrong mode there, but yeah. What happened to our cliff? It looks totally... Oh, it is sideways. I'll be darned. But we had it right side up in here. So why would it rotate? That is so strange. So Cliff A, oh, that's Cliff's one. That Cliff A01? Let's see. Let's bring the group back over. Let's zero that out. Grab just a cliff by itself. It shouldn't come in sideways like that. That was really odd. So grab that one, freeze, delete, file, export selection. Cliff A01, export selection, replace it, yes. And then let's just make sure our naming convention's accurate. It's here underscore A01. We go back into Unreal, go back into our temp folder. Let's grab Cliff A01 again. So I just redid that and bring it in. And it should replace it. So if we import that, importing done. I guess I could have just right-clicked on this and done a re-import with the new file. And it's still bringing it in sideways. I'll just have to troubleshoot that later. Oh no, I want to stop. So there we go. So there's 90 degrees up. And there we go. So here's a nice big cliff face. So this will work really well for preserving the caps on the side here. So you can see from right here, if I scale this up to the edge, I'm going to get this really nice overhang along this valley. And we can play around with that quite a bit. So I could just shift drag that over here, rotate it around like that. We can make it flatter, thinner if we want. That usually works pretty well too. And that way we have a lot more flexibility for how we're going. And you can even rock it back and forth. There we go. So this doesn't work as well with the foliage brush per se, but it will give us another tool to add to our bag of tricks here. But let's try the rocks and the boulders. So if I go over here to the boulder and let's go into foliage brush mode. Um, inside the foliage brush, I'm going to drop in the first boulder A, and there's boulder BO1. They rotated both of them. I must have missed something. Oh, there's a Y up on Maya that does that. So if I do this, file, export the selection. I guess I should use FBX at this point. Um, but usually, yeah, if you switch this to the FBX export, you'll see there's an automatic embed media. You want to bring in the texture maps. You're going to turn off audio, turn off lights, turn off camera, turn off animation. You just want the geometry. Sometimes you can include smoothing groups. And under the advanced options here, units should be automatic. It should axis conversion Y up from Maya. Maya's Y up is Z up for Unreal Engine. So I don't know if that's going to help. So we'll find out later. But let's just continue with this as we have it. So I'm just going to drag this boulder in over here and let it think about it for a second. So let's see, that didn't work quite yet. Let's see, save all, save selection. There we go. Oh, I have it on erase. Let's do select, drag the boulder. There it goes. And then drag the other boulder. So this is going to be upright instead of down flat. That's why I was like, oh, dang, that's not what I wanted. So definitely a sideways thing. So okay, so let's do this boulder first. So while I'm in here, I can now prototype pretty quickly with my rocky pieces. Then we'll do some organic pieces to wrap this up. So within the brush, I click on it one time, and you see I have the settings here. Very straightforward for the brush. We could do a paint version of this. So here's your brush size. And right now there's 0 boulders in the world. So instance count is right there. And we'll use the entry point as we come through here as an example. So off the side of this, they're going to have some boulders kind of crumbling and tumbling down along around this side over here. So we go to the mesh, we go to the density, we give the radius a little bit like that of how big of a radius this thing can roll. Wow, those are really huge numbers. Wasn't expecting that. And maybe that's the brush size is up. Maybe I made the brush too big. Paint densities right here. You can erase as well, which is pretty awesome. And so here's our scale min max. So I usually keep it as a uniform, but you can unlock it and do free for scale for making it random on the height and weights. But minimum overall size, let's go like 0.25, so it'll go down to a quarter of the size of its original. And for maximum, let's go times 4. So it goes down to 1/4 of its original size up to 400% or 4 times the size. The offset is the minimum maximum to be embedded down in the ground. So we'll take a look at that. Let's make sure we have the landscape selected. So we'll go in here and select the landscape first. Then make sure we're in the foliage brush and have this piece of foliage selected. And let's see if the brush is going to start working here in just a minute. We'll make sure it's on the right layer and that all the other pieces are turned on. So we'll come back to this on the next video and start painting and playing with our foliage brush settings.